much, Margaret, for your introduction earlier, and thank you for inviting me to be here this evening. It's such a joyous occasion, prize giving, isn't it? And all those happy faces, and I think often overlooked is the, I'm sure, stress that is felt by those who are going to perform individual pieces, particularly those two piano pieces we've heard beautifully played, and it's much harder to get up and play in front of your peer group and your teachers and your parents than it is to get up and play in front of people you don't know. So many congratulations to all the prize winners, and particularly, I would say, the pianists. It's a great honour to be asked to present the prizes of the school, and even if one hasn't got any links with the school, I think one's taken back to one's own school days, very happy ones in my own case, although I can't help remembering that that was a very long time ago. When I was the guest speaker at my own school, Strathern, a few years ago, I was brought back to reality when I was told that not merely were the buildings in which I had been educated about to be demolished and replaced, but so were nearly all of those that had been built after I left. And I felt a very old girl, indeed. Now, it is a particular pleasure to be here at Victoria, which, as you have heard, founded Strathern. In fact, I think our first headmistress, Miss Muskelly, had been a classics teacher at Victoria. And I suppose, in a way, I'm almost an old girl here, although I can remember on the hockey field, we certainly didn't feel that we were sister schools. I'm sure of that. And as you've heard, I've been had an interest in education for a long time. I was chairman of governors of an inner city girls comprehensive low debt boys and sixth form in London, in Marylebone. It's in central London, very near Baker Street and Madame Tussauds, if you know where that is. It's a bit bigger, certainly in terms of senior school pupils. We've got 1,100 pupils from 11 to 18. But there's one great contrast. One great contrast with this school. That inner London school, which has very good results considering our intake, very good. We've got no space, no playing fields, no room for cycle racks or lockers, no school bus, there's nowhere to put it. We've got one small astroturf pitch on top of an underground sports hall, and we had to dig out a medieval graveyard and rebury thousands of bodies to build that. Rumour has it that there was a skeleton in the corner of the playground for some time. I don't think that's true. You've got wonderful facilities here, not just for lessons, but for all the extra activities that create a successful school. So make sure you use and enjoy them. I'm sure you do, because a wonderful list of sporting and all-round achievements. I'm also interested in education because after 25 years as a lawyer, I took what might be described as a gap decade. I don't suggest any of you do that just yet. But I went back to university at UCL to study classics, and I'm now an honorary research fellow there. And some of you today may find it rather hard to understand why anybody would voluntarily want to do more exams. But I think the older one gets, one realises how being taught by enthusiastic experts is a really fantastic experience. And I'm now doing research on documents found in Egypt, written in ancient Greek on bits of papyrus, which is like paper made from the papyrus reed that used to grow in the Nile, when the Nile was rather cleaner than it is now. And they're preserved by the dry climate. Papyrus would have been used all over the Roman Empire as a writing material. The damp has got to it in most places. So it's most of the papyri that we have, apart from some from Herculaneum that were preserved by fire or carbonised, those are preserved by Egypt, where the desert sand has actually covered them and protected them. And most other written records that we have from the Roman world are either on stone, some wonderful stone carvings and inscriptions, but you don't write your shopping list on a piece of stone, do you? You don't get that aspect of life from stone inscriptions. And of course they used wax tablets, but the wax was smoothed and reused, and that's been lost. Sometimes you get scratchings on the wooden case that the wax would have been preserved in, but we don't have an awful lot of that available. And of course we've got the wooden tablets from Vinland that are preserved by water. It's interesting that water preserves some things while it destroys others. But we've got much more evidence from papyri. There's over 500,000 fragments in Oxford alone. And most of them were found in rubbish tips. So you get all sorts of stuff. If you can imagine going through someone's recycling crate or bag or whatever you put outside of the recycling, yeah. And obviously they didn't have Coke bottles in those days, but or cans. But all the paper rubbish that you throw out, we've got examples of. So letters, private letters home from students to their parents. One apologising for an incident in the theatre. We don't know what they did, but obviously it deserved an apology. Letters which, somehow you think if something's been preserved for nearly 2,000 years, it ought to have some merit apart from just having been preserved. But I can tell you a lot of the letters are no better than the kind of thank you letters we all used to write when we were children. Dear X, I hope you are well. I am well. Thank you for the, whatever it was. It is very useful stroke. I like it a lot. I also got, and then there's the bit at the end about please greet my uncle, aunt, cousin, whatever, and love from. And you think, it must have been a lot more effort in those days to produce that letter and have it delivered, and you know, there's no more in it than there would be today. So there's lots of property documents, lots of tax returns, the school exercises, like somebody practicing their signature. Do you remember practicing your signature to try and get some sort of nice-looking, flowing signature? And then it just goes somehow, and one ends up there a scratchy thing. But we've got examples of that. And also some documents that I worked on, circus programs. Now, when Juvenal talked about bread and circuses keep the people happy, we didn't mean circuses in our sort of, what we mean, we meant chariot racing, because that was the big sport in the Roman Empire. It was like our football. And they think that the Circus Maximus, I don't know if any of you on the Rome trip saw the Circus Maximus, may have held 150,000 people. Wembley only holds 90,000. It's a huge sport, and they would have had in a chariot race. We're all too young to have ever watched Ben Hur, but some of the people on that side of the hall, down there, might have. There might have been, at its peak, 100 races a day, 4 horses to a chariot, and maybe 12 chariots in a race. A huge numbers of charioteers, horses, and of course, lots of damage, because a lot of them were destroyed, although particularly going around the corners, which was the dangerous bit. So it was terribly expensive. And gradually, because of the cost, there were fewer races, and there had to be more what one might have called fillers in between to keep the crowd happy, like a warm-up act that comes on before the main act. And we see from these 1,500-year-old programs, we see some examples where they had a race, and then another act like a tightrope walker, or somebody who walked on stilts, or a mime artist, or a gymnast. And then we have another race, and then we have another act, and so on. And gradually they ran out of money, and they ran out of enthusiasm for chariot racing, but all they had were, you see programs that just have stilt walkers, trapeze artists, gymnasts, and so on. And that's our circus. So those acts which we see in circuses today have been around for 1,500 years, and that's why we call them a circus, although originally it was the racetrack. So that's enough about it. That's the end of the papyrology lecture. I can talk about papyrology for hours. And just, you know, school texts. Everybody has school texts, so they read a lot of, I don't know what they are now. In my day, we read 2 Shakespeare plays, and you did, one was a tragedy and one wasn't. And you read Jane Austen, all sorts of things. And there were loads and loads of copies of those because everybody had one. And that's one of the reasons we have so many bits of papyrus that have got texts of Homer on them, because Homer was a set text all those years ago, and he's still a set text today, so that's longevity for him, isn't it? But we've got modern things too. 2 recent volumes of papyri published from Oxford Incas, which is the place where the ones I study come from. One is a contract to fix a wrestling match. So we read a lot about match fixing, or they were doing it then. And the latest one, a volume of medical papyri, is a cure for a hangover. Although since it involves putting a laurel wreath around your neck, I'm not quite sure if it works, but they were interested in the same things. So I was a student at only a few years ago, and I think I realised, even though I come from the generation which has had it all, and it's been criticised for taking too much and now hanging on to too much as well, And I think I realised, because of that experience of going through university again later on, and seeing my fellow students, who are of course 2 generations younger than me, how hard it is, how hard teachers have to work today, but also how much more difficult it is for students. There's so much more pressure on you to do well. So those of you who have done so well, many, many congratulations. Now, for many years, I worked as a lawyer in the city. I was a corporate finance lawyer, and I was fairly well known in that, we called rarefied aspect, but in that field, because there weren't so many women there in those days. But no one ever asked me to come and present their prizes until I'd appeared on The Apprentice. And of course, we all know I'm really here because I've been on the telly. O tempora, o mores. Now, I hope this won't disappoint you, but I'm not actually going to talk about The Apprentice, or not very much. It was a very minor part of my life, 5 series, over 5 years ago. None of us realised that it was going to be so popular. And the main effect it's had for me is constantly being recognised. It's a very strange phenomenon for a lawyer, because you don't normally see them. You see Fiona Shackleton sometimes, they talk about their divorce lawyer, because she's with some famous person whose divorce she's acting. You don't normally see lawyers, they're sort of grey behind the scenes. And so being recognised is very strange. And I get people come to me and say, "Are you that woman?" Well, there's lots of answers to that. You know. I was mistaken by a drunk on the tube for Mary Berry, but I'm not quite sure. But I think one thing The Apprentice did, and I actually regard this as a favour, is that it shows that men and women are the same when they're put in those sorts of situations, and that women are not, by nature, better team players than men. Everybody's the same. Just one word of advice, girls. If you ever have to pick a career, if you have to choose between the media and law, pick law. But one good thing The Apprentice has done, this is why I'm sure we're going to do it, is to give a lot of young people an interest in starting up business. University isn't right for everybody. Maybe right for all of you here, because you've done fantastically well at school. It's not right for everybody, and I don't think we should persist in this 50% have to go to university, because it's not good for everybody. There are perfectly good careers. Everybody should have training and education to enable them to find out what they want to do, and then to enable them to do it. But that isn't necessarily university. But one good thing The Apprentice did for me was to give me the opportunity to make some other television programmes about things that interest me. Like, as you've heard, the eruption of Vesuvius that destroyed Pompeii, and despite the fact that we know now that it was heat that killed the people, the guides that take you around the site will still say that the people suffocated in ash, which isn't true. And I made one about the early Greek poet Sappho, one of the earliest known poets, and a woman poet who came from the island of Lesbos. We were filming in Lesbos in February before all these poor thousands of refugees were coming. It's very hard, having been there in February, to think of that island, which is not very big, being so submerged in this torrent of people trying to escape. And it was also, I may say, absolutely freezing. I have never been so cold in my life. And when we think of ancient Greece and poets and priestesses, we think of them in filmy white robes and wafting around. And actually, it was freezing. And I don't know how they kept warm. They had just layers and layers of woolen cloaks or something. I had to make a hot water bottle out of a mineral water bottle and a sock. So glamorous television is not. But I also had, as you know, the good fortune to make a programme for Northern Ireland Television about Isabella Tom. Now, I've never heard of Isabella Tom before, which I think is actually awful. And there was no memorial for her. In fact, one of those quirks of television, we recorded the programme, it was what they call in the can, and the last words were, "There's no memorial to her, isn't that shocking?" And then they put up a blue plaque, and we had to change the last word because there was no memorial. And saying, well, there's only a blue plaque, and that's not enough. And of course, she was one of Margaret Byers' primary school great friends. I did wonder when I was looking up about Margaret Byers, and I saw that the name changed to Victoria in 1887 on the 50th anniversary of Queen Victoria becoming monarch, and now you might be thinking of calling it Elizabeth College. But Belfast, as I'm sure you all know, in the late 19th century, it was one of the major industrial cities of the world. Shipyards yards, the linen mills, the rope works, the tobacco factories. The linen and tobacco were the largest in the world, factories here. And of course, there were huge employers of women in those kind of jobs. And Isabella Todd was a pioneer in women's suffrage. Women had municipal votes in Belfast in 1887, that's 11 years before in any other city in Ireland. She fought for women's rights to own property. It's very hard to believe now that before her campaigning, married women didn't have the right to own their own property. Even their wages belonged to their husbands. And there she was, a Belfast spinster, the only woman invited to give evidence to a House of Commons Select Committee on the issue of women's property. That's in 1868. You know, Victoria woman setting off on her own, journey to London. Goodness knows how long it took, what it was like. Very, very brave. She tackled alcoholism with Margaret Byers. They founded the Belfast Women's Temperance Society to have coffee shops so there was somewhere for people to go, not just going to a pub. We still have a concern today that we don't look after prisoners properly. When they leave, when they're released, they're given £48 and set off into the world. She founded the Prison Gate Mission. She challenged the harsh treatment of prostitutes, as opposed to their male customers, I must say, by campaigning for reform of the Contagious Diseases Act. And of course, she was a pioneer of women's education, particularly secondary and tertiary education. And eventually succeeded in women being admitted to Queen's University, although it took them a bit long to be able to take a degree, but not as long as my alma mater, Cambridge, where it wasn't until 1948 that women were awarded degrees. And if Margaret Byers hadn't started Victoria with its history and natural sciences and classics, we'd all been doing, we girls, would have been doing needlework and French. Now, I suppose I shouldn't say French with quite such a sneer. More needlework, I suppose, but I did needlework for half term. That was enough. I bet you don't do anything called needlework now, do you? And of course, Margaret Byers didn't stop in education. She founded orphanages as well. And just think what a debt society owes to those Victorian women and to the great pioneers of women's education in England. Miss Buss, who founded North London Collegiate School, and Miss Bean, who founded Cheltenham Ladies College, still two of the outstanding girls' schools, and Emily Davis, who founded Girton College, all Victorian pioneers. And of course, not all has been progress, because Latin and Greek have ceased to be on the curriculum for a lot of schools, so I'm thrilled to be here in a school where Latin and Greek have not ceased to be part of the curriculum, and where you do classical civilization as well, and where you have trips to see the ancient sites. I think it's brilliant. And, you know, I think we can see from what they did, the same social issues are still there now as they were. They've helped them, but they haven't been solved. I think we owe it to those Victorian women to exercise our right to vote. When you think of what they did, and then the suffragettes did to get votes for women, and some people don't vote, I think it's a disgrace. And we owe it to them to use our education and the chances in life we are given to go on trying to improve prospects for those less able to succeed. I want to leave you with just a few thoughts. First of all, things don't always turn out the way you expect. When I was at school, I wanted to be a translator or an interpreter. And I enjoyed doing languages, and I did lots of languages for A-level, and I got a place at Cambridge to read French and German. And about 7 weeks in, I thought, I don't like this. I'm not enjoying doing French and German. I don't want to do it. And it did never ever occur to me that I might want to do anything else. And I was very lucky. I switched to law because some friends did law. I thought, well, maybe I'll go with that. And I really liked it, and I was very happy as a lawyer for 25 years. But when I was at school, I never thought that I'd be a lawyer. And when I was working as a lawyer, I certainly never thought that I'd become a classics student again. And I never expected to be on television. And that only happened by coincidence, because Alan Sugar had been one of my clients when I was a lawyer in private practice. And neither of my parents ever saw me on television. It was a very, very late development in my life. So I'd say to you, don't worry if you haven't decided what you want to be. And don't be afraid to try something new. While you're at school, that could be a new sport, a new subject, a new hobby. Later on, you may decide to change your course, you may decide to do something different, completely different from what you originally thought. And the worst thing would be to look back and say, I wish I'd tried, whatever it is. So don't be afraid to embrace change. There are lots of opportunities out there for the taking. And second, there's a lot of stress now, I know, on CVs and personal statements and exam results and career planning. And two, because we do need an emphasis on the importance of the STEM subjects. But life has to be enriched too, with theatre and music and arts and poetry and sport. So whatever you're studying, do make time for these and keep them up. It's harder often after you leave school because the opportunities aren't all there on the doorstep. Don't give them up. Keep on with them. When I became a lawyer, there weren't very many women in the city, but it never occurred to me that I would meet any prejudice or be discriminated against in any way. And I didn't, and I wasn't. No one, at home or at school or at university, had ever led me to believe that I couldn't be successful in anything I chose to do. You have to believe in yourselves, because if you don't, no one else is going to. Now, everyone needs role models, but you don't need a single role model for everything. You observe, you pick up different things from different people. In school, it may be the way one teacher handles something, explains something, it may be the way a fellow pupil handles a difficult situation, it may be something that happens on a sports field, something that you learn from your parents. You pick up things from all those people. And you certainly don't need a same-sex role model. If that was needed, we'd never have had a woman Supreme Court judge, or the chief executive of a top listed company, or a fighter pilot, not to mention Prime Minister. There's no glass ceiling unless you conjure it up yourselves. And finally, from a lawyer, the importance of words. Whatever you do, you need to be able to express yourselves clearly, and words come from books, not from television. So, be very selective about what you watch and read. And remember, whatever you're doing, at school, at university, whatever career it is, you need to hear what other people are saying to you. Very few of the apprentices get that right. They're always arguing and bragging about themselves. Those aren't very attractive traits, are they? I once heard a storyteller on the radio saying that if speaking was as important as listening, we'd have one ear and two tongues. I think that's very true. But now I'd like to thank you all for listening so well, and wish you success in your studies and in the years to come. And prize winners, this is your day, but you know you didn't get where you are without help and support. So I think I'd like the prize winners, please, to thank their families and friends by giving them a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mountford, and I think history and longevity permeate your address, and I hope that the success demonstrated here tonight shows the skills and capabilities of the girls develop each day in the college, that hopefully girls will help you make your own history in the future. I would now like to invite the head girl and deputy head girls to propose a vote of thanks.
Dr. Mountford, as pupils in Victoria College, we are very proud of our heritage and of the wonderful Victorian women who made it possible for girls to be educated to the same high standards as boys. We owe so much to the determination and vision of women like Margaret Byers, or Fondress, and Isabella Todd. Equally, it has been fascinating to listen to you talk to us this evening and share with us your love of learning. I suspect not many of us may have had the study of papyrology foremost in our minds prior to this evening. However, there is no doubt that you will have sparked an interest in someone within the hall. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. You are a wonderful role model for all of us Victoria girls, and I would ask you to accept this small token of our appreciation this evening, presented on behalf of the college by our deputy head girls, Jordan Gillespie and Karen Keegan.
And finally, I invite Dr. Mountford to join our guests in the hall to enjoy a short musical programme presented by our senior choir this evening. Following which, may I please ask guests to remain seated until the academic procession leaves the hall. Please do join us for refreshments in the dining hall later this evening. Thank you.
Dominus Deus, Dominus Deus, Dominus Deus, Dominus